Morgan J. Ingram here, host of the SDR Chronicles, bringing you motivational tips and tactics for your sales development journey and as a sales professional and as an entrepreneur. As this SDR Chronicles, the main reason is because sales development is the epicenter of your career and also of your life. This is a skill that you use on a day-to-day basis. And so it is not just for SDRs, it is for a plethora of people, which I'm super excited to always do an episode and bring in guests to talk about their experiences. So today here I have Chris with me, and he's from Optimizely, and he's the director of global sales development. He's also had other sales development positions as companies such as Nitro and other great tech companies. So he has a lot of experience in sales development. So you guys need to, if you don't have your volume turned up, you need to turn it up even higher now, because this guy knows what I'm saying. This guy knows what he's talking about based on the experience that I've seen thus far. So the topic we're going to go into is how to be radically candor with your peers and also with people that are reporting to you as well, and how it really helps you with personal development, also with your personal career. So without any further ado, I'm going to let Chris dive into a little bit more about him and then why he's excited to be here today.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. Thanks for having me. Hello to all the listeners. Super stoked to be here. I think the reason why I chose this particular topic, and Morgan, I'm glad that you agreed to it, is because it's absolutely top of mind. It's a book that I read recently and that I had my management team read as well. It's actually this one right here, a little plug for Kim and Russ over at Radically Candid or Radical Candor. If you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend that you do. But I think it's a topic that is oftentimes maybe overlooked or not discussed, because being radically candid can be very challenging for people. It requires a certain level of not only empathy, but the ability to challenge people directly. And I think, at least in my experience, being able to do both of those at a certain balance, right, can be really, really difficult. But if you can, and you're actively being radically candid with the people that not only report to you, but that you work with and that you report to, it can have a huge impact on not only personal development, professional development, and then just the broader success of the company, really.
Yeah, no, and I want to get into a high level of what you believe radical candor means, and not from just a perspective of, hey, like it means to just be trustworthy with your peers and like say the right things. It's like, what does that actually mean for you without reading that book and just what you know right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what it really means is leading with the truth, right? Making sure that people that you're providing feedback and guidance to, again, people that work for you, if it's your peers or if it's your boss, that you're leading with the truth, that you're being completely honest, but you're doing it in a very caring and empathetic way, right? You understand that there's emotions associated with it. You understand that maybe the truth is going to hurt, right? Especially if it's difficult. But doing the opposite of that, just being too empathetic, not providing the truth, just sugarcoating stuff, can actually lead to a far worse outcome. So again, leading with the truth, caring personally, but also challenging directly is super, super important.
Yeah, and I want to go on that last point, challenging directly, because I feel like you probably manage a lot of millennials or probably younger people, and I know this is
like you, man.
Yeah, I know personally I hate to be challenged, but over time I've gotten used to it and I take that feedback and I improve upon it. But no one likes to be directly called out. So how do you handle that with grace to make sure that you don't lose that rep and you actually gain that rapport with them?
Yeah. I think to be able to challenge someone directly, you first need to show that you're caring personally, right? And the way that this book has been written and kind of the whole concept has been developed is you've got those two kind of axes, if you will. So if you prove to the person over time, it doesn't happen overnight, but if you get to know the person on a personal level, you understand what's motivating them, you understand what makes them tick. What's on their mind, either professionally or personally. And you really, again, prove to them that you give a shit and that you've got their best interests in mind. If a situation comes around where you need to challenge that person directly, if it's, maybe some constructive criticism, or there's a area of improvement that you need to deliver, if they feel like you've got their back and you actually really care,
Right.
Then they will be more receptive to that feedback or to you challenging them directly, because they know that you're doing it in order to make them better.
Right.
If you lead with just being, assertive and challenging that person, but actually not really caring that much, or taking the time to get to know them,
Right.
then you're just being an a-hole, right? And that's what people don't like.
And that has to do with tone more so is what you're really saying there.
Yeah, tone is absolutely important. Like the delivery of the message is absolutely critical, but it's really spending the time, the cycles, the resources up front just to get to know the person, right? Show them that you really care. Again, care about them personally, professionally, their brand within the organization, their career past the current employer, right? If you do that, then they're going to be far more receptive when you got to sit them down and say, like, look, Morgan, you're not making enough calls, you're not hitting your numbers, right? I really do care, and this is why I'm giving you this guidance, but we need to figure this shit out, because if not, then we're all in a crappy situation.
Yeah, they're not a good situation at all. And so let's kind of flip the tables here. How does a rep approach candor to someone of your experience and someone in your level of leadership, right? Because I think that could go the wrong way. It's like, well, yeah, everyone to be transparent, and then like the rep goes crazy and is way too transparent, and it's like, wait, that's not what we're saying. So how do you gauge that?
Yeah, dude, awesome question, man. And in fact, I think what Kim mentioned in the book was she gave her session or her conference once, right? And someone took that and was radically candid to their boss. And they actually got fired as a result of it.
Oh, wow.
So you don't want to do that, right? You gotta be careful. But just like, if you're trying to be honest and candid with your employees, right? The same applies to your boss,
right?
Or even people above your boss, right? You need to go in there and say, and Carl's my boss as an example, the CMO here, right? We've gotten to know each other over the months. Hey, Carl, man, like I've got some constructive criticism for you. This is what I'm observing, right? This has nothing to do with you personally. I just want to get better, right? Even if it's maybe our relationship or the way that we're doing things or going to market, whatever the case may be. And this is the point of my feedback and my guidance, right? Let's focus on that. But again, don't lose sight of the fact that you need to make it very clear that your intentions for this guidance are real and good.
So it's being honest within that sphere and understanding that there is a line, but you still can be real within that.
Oh, absolutely, man. And I think you're doing a huge disservice, not only to yourself, to your boss, to your peers, whomever, to the company, if you're sugarcoating stuff, right? Because then no one learns, no one gets anything done, right? Nothing gets improved that way. You're just walking around each other on eggshells, making sure not to hurt anyone's feelings, right? Again, as long as you care for the person, for the project, for the organization, then you absolutely have the right and the obligation to be honest with your guidance and with your feedback.
Yeah, no, I really do. I really do appreciate that answer. And that does make a lot of sense. And so let's even go a little bit deeper. So you're interviewing people. There's obviously new reps that need to be inserted into your organization from an SDR standpoint. How do you make sure that that person can receive that feedback that is that candor, and also have candor with their fellow coworkers and their colleagues?
Yeah, I think you do that a few different ways. One, it starts with the culture of the team, right? So as an example, we don't have formal, like in a conference room, meetings with my global team. We do more stand-ups, et cetera, on the sales floor. And during those sessions, we make it a point to be radically candid with each other, right? If it means, someone providing public praise, or, hey, Jamie, I noticed that you kind of screwed up on the phone here a little bit. Right? I would suggest you do this, et cetera. And for people that are new to the team and to the organization, they're going to sit back and observe that, right? And they're going to see that people are challenging each other, they're praising, they're providing that guidance. And then over time, they're going to feel much more comfortable doing that, right? In a group setting. They're going to feel that it's not only, again, appropriate, but an obligation to be radically candid with everyone else. Now, on an individual level, what you need to do is to start by getting to know that person, right?
Right.
Making sure that you understand how they like to receive feedback, how they like to receive constructive criticism, making sure to understand how they like to be praised. Is it a private praise, public praise, etc. And as long as you do that and you build that empathy and that relationship over time, then in theory, they'll be able to adapt to that culture of radical candor.
Yeah. And you mentioned something about a little bit earlier about how when you would say, hey, like someone's not performing well and you have to have that radical candor, and also maybe you have to put someone on plan because they're not performing well, but you actually genuinely like that person, like outside of work, like they're actually a great person.
They're a friend, right?
Their performance is off. How do you approach that conversation and be real with them, but also not like tear them apart? Because I feel like that's like the hardest thing to do is when you actually genuinely like the person, but you have to give them some tough news that they're not going to like.
Yeah. Again, I think it's all in the delivery, right? And if that was a hypothetical situation for me, I'd go up to the person and say, look, John, I need to give you some guidance and some feedback, right? Or some observations that I've made. It really has nothing to do with you personally. I still think you're an awesome sales development rep or AE or whatever. And I consider you a close friend, right? But I'm giving you this feedback because I want to see you get better and I want to see you successful, right? And let's not focus on John, the person, and the things that he may be doing wrong. Let's focus on the very tangible, practical things that you can actually fix, right? Like maybe it's call activity, maybe it's the way they qualify, maybe it's, time management, right? Those are not personal to John. These are things that he is doing potentially wrong that you can actually change and impact. You don't want to focus on the individual. You don't want to make it personal necessarily.
Yeah. And tell me why most organizations aren't going towards this route where you guys are at, is where they're actually radical candor throughout the organization. Like what happens when that doesn't happen?
Well, I think some companies or individuals tend to shy away from being radically candid because, quite frankly, it's tough. Right? I screw it up all the time, where sometimes I'm either too empathetic or I'm a bit too aggressive, right? And it's kind of based on my mood or the situation or the scenario at the time. So it's tough to be consistent in terms of radically candid. And then also too, I think especially in today's, and I'm going to generalize here, right? But in today's kind of more sheltered, entitled generation or environment, right? People don't feel comfortable providing that constructive criticism, right? They want to sugarcoat things. They want to make sure that everyone feels warm and fuzzy, when in fact, by doing so, you're breaking them down, man, and you're not providing them the guidance and the feedback they need to be the best that they can be, really.
And that kind of goes into what we've talked about is personal and professional growth. Because I feel like if you don't give them that candid feedback, it actually stunts it.
Oh, absolutely, man. And every person that I've worked with or worked for who I've been radically candid with, either if we're still working together now or it's been in a previous life, they've always come back to me and said, hey, man, the one thing I think about you in terms of your leadership style is you always tell me how it is, right? You've got my back, but you always are completely honest and candid with me. And by doing so, I know more about myself. I know what my strengths and weaknesses are, and I know what I need to do in order to get better and improve and be successful, right? Because that's why we're here, man. We're not here to just do a job and go home and hang out, right? We're here to actually progress our careers and do something really freaking cool in this world.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to understand what you're good at and maybe where you need to improve.
And so when you need to improve, is that something that you'll go to your boss with and say like, hey, these are things I need to improve on. Can you assist in that matter?
Oh, absolutely. Right. If it's your boss, if it's your, enablement team, if it's your peers, whomever, right. You're like, hey, I just received some feedback. I tend to agree with that feedback. I don't know where to begin, but at least I know that there's something tangible that I can actually improve. Like, how do I get there? And then usually if you're not an asshole, people will help you out.
Yeah. I mean, like that in that regard, then that's a completely different aspect that you're going under that you do not want to go to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how have you seen the culture overall manifest as you've had this candor focused thing right here? Because I think it's more so where your reps are starting to be more honest with each other, and maybe they're challenging each other, and you might not have to challenge your reps as much. So kind of talk about that. I don't know if you're seeing that, but I feel like I know with my previous organization, that's something that we saw across the board.
Oh, dude, totally. I think the most relevant example of that would be we're in a team setting. Maybe it's a formal meeting. We're talking about how we did in the previous quarter, going through some observations, et cetera. And, someone on my team raises their hand and says, no, I think that's bullshit, right? I didn't notice that, or I don't think that's the right direction, or, right? And they've got some constructive criticism, right? And they feel comfortable doing that. And I sit there and I praise that. Jamie, awesome, dude. Thank you for raising your hand and for challenging me, because I didn't think about it that way, right? Maybe we need to think about this differently, right? Or we're in a team setting and someone raises their hand and says, I just want to recognize, Andrea for just really helping me out on the phones today, right? And using that platform, if you will, to praise, right? And make people feel good about what they're doing. Like when you see that in a public forum where people feel comfortable to either care personally or challenge directly, and they know they're not going to get reprimanded as a result of it.
Right.
They know that you're doing something right.
Yeah, and that's from leadership down, guys, for sure. Like you have to make sure that if you're the leader, that you're the person being candor, and don't expect someone on your team to have candor when you are not doing the same thing. And I feel like that's across the board, wherever you go. If you have that, then you'll be set for sure. And I think it even goes further that you probably see a lot of great friendships that are being molded within your team because a lot of people are honest.
Oh, absolutely, man. Right. If you think about it, if you remember like a sales triangle, right? What's the bottom tier of that triangle? It's trust. Everything is built on trust. As long as you've got that as a foundation, then everything in theory will build upon it. The same applies, right, with the team. And I think the best way to do that is just to be honest with each other, right? And show that you actually do care, that you're doing this because you genuinely want the people to either improve or understand what they're doing really, really well.
Yeah. And other things you're doing outside of work to build that candor?
Oh, geez. I try to be candid with my wife of 10 years, right? But that's
yeah. Well, just from like a rep standpoint.
A what? I'm sorry?
Just from like a rep standpoint, or other leaders, like how are you keeping that? Like you're obviously at work and you spend a majority of the time there, but are there things outside to continuously make sure that everyone's on the same page?
Yeah, I think, I'm out and about a lot, networking and just attending, AA, ISP sessions, et cetera. And I think the best way that you can promote this whole idea of radically candid is just by acting so if you don't agree with something in a session, you say, hey man, I don't agree with that, or I'm doing something differently, right? People understand that it's okay to challenge, right? And if they feel comfortable challenging, then they're going to be more apt to do it themselves.
Right. And I don't want someone to get the wrong idea who's listening in here watching this, and you think that you can just start challenging everybody in your path. That's not what we're saying here at all. It's a respectful challenge, and you're actually just provoking more thought, and you're making the person think a little bit deeper so that you yourself can think deeper.
That's absolutely right, man. And again, and I would not to promote the book too much, but it's really freaking cool. One of the best that I've read, but if you're challenging directly too much, but you're not caring, then literally you're an asshole. Like you're way too aggressive, and people do not like that. However, if you are good at challenging directly, but actually caring personally, and it's tough to do both at the same time, then that's when, that's kind of the sweet spot. That's the magic quadrant that you want to try to be in.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to spend time up front getting to know people and showing that you really do care. Because in absence of that, then people aren't going to listen.
Yeah, no, they're not, because they're going to see you as just the attacker, and nobody wants to be attacked. However, everyone wants to be helped. So you have to come from a helpful position. Like, okay, like I understand what you're doing here, but like, this is how I see it. And I've actually may have even been through this, right? Some empathy. I've been through this, and these are the steps that you need to take to be successful.
That's absolutely right, man. Don't make it personal, right? I've been there before, like you said. These are things that I noticed that we can actually impact and improve, right?
Right.
And let's put together a plan that works for both of us.
And do you see, like, thinking about the future of sales development and where it's really going, do you see that more leaders will start to understand this concept of being candor and being more real with their reps instead of, maybe hiding behind the manager's desk, as I like to say?
Yeah, dude. I hope so, man. And I think what's going to happen is, as you know, the sales development reps or just people in general become more sophisticated and want more in terms of development.
Mhm.
They're gonna require that from their leaders, and the leaders that can actually feel comfortable about doing this are the ones who are going to be successful and going to run successful teams. The ones who shy away from having candid conversations with their team, either good or bad, are not going to work out.
Right, 100%. And that's the biggest thing overall. And if you can continuously focus in on that, then that's where it's really going to manifest into something really special.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Chris, I really have enjoyed this interview thus far. I think everyone will understand the standpoint of how to really have candor with your team and how to really elevate yourself to like a new level that I think a lot of leaders and maybe even reps that are looking to go into leadership will take with them and will surprise their own upper management as well. So Chris, the question I ask every single person, the last question here, what is the number one piece of advice that you have for SDRs as they get into their new role?
One piece of advice: be patient, right? I think that's one kind of attribute that we're starting to lose a bit in today's society when this idea of immediate gratification is so real. We can get whatever we want on this phone within seconds.
Yeah.
And as a result, people are becoming way more impatient. Come into the role, understand that you're going to do it for a couple of years, immerse yourself in the role, learn everything that you can, do whatever you can to perfect your trade. And I guarantee it that if you do that and you do it well and you do it consistently, then you're going to get the opportunity to go do something cool.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, Chris, I really did appreciate this topic. I think I got a lot from it. I know a lot of people will as well. And as I always say, guys, keep dialing. I'll see you guys soon.
All right. Later.
See ya.